In this video, I'm going to be discussing how to graph ordered pairs and make a table to graph an equation. Now, in order to begin, we first need to understand how to graph points. Now, points are what are called ordered pairs. They're the same thing, just different words for the same thing. An ordered pair is a location on the graph that is described by two numbers. And those numbers we label as x and y. Now, you've probably seen this before in a previous math class, but I want to review what these things mean. So the x-coordinate, that's what this is referred to as the x-coordinate, tells us the horizontal location of our point. So how far do I move right or left when graphing? The y-coordinate, that would be this one right here, tells us the vertical location. Now, using these two things together, we are able to graph points. Now, I want to review how to graph points given in the XY format. So, to plot a point, there are 3 steps. What you're going to do is you're going to start by moving left or right on the x-coordinate. Once you've moved left or right, you're going to move up or down on the y. After doing both movements, right, left, up, down, you plot the point. So let me zoom here a little bit. For example, let's try the point 3, 7. Now I'm going to do some labeling. This is the x-coordinate. This is the y-coordinate. So here's what it tells me. It tells me to go right 3. A positive x means go right. So I go right 1, 2, 3. From here, the y tells me to go up 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So right there is the point 3, 7. Right 3, up 7. Let's try another one. So I have the point negative 5, 5. So again, I'm going to label this is x, this is y. Now a negative x tells me to go left. So I'm going to start here, what is called the origin. I'll talk more about that in a little bit. So from the origin, I'm going to go left 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then the y again tells me to go up 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's the point negative 5, 5. Let's do one more. The point negative 1, negative 6, this tells me left 1, and down 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So again, I have my x, y, left 1, down 6. A negative y tells you to go down. And so that's how we plot those 3 points. We go over on the x, up and down on the y. Now with our plane, this is referred to as the coordinate plane, or sometimes you may hear it called the Cartesian plane. It can be broken down into what are called quadrants. So it's broken down into 4 quadrants. Now these quadrants we like to label. So I'll go through how to label them. So up here in the top corner, we refer to this as quadrant 1. Next, we have quadrant 2. This is quadrant 3. And last, we have quadrant 4. Now in the quadrants, our x and y's all have a pattern. So for example, in order to get to the first quadrant, I need to go right on the x, meaning that my x is positive, and I need to go up on the y. So all of the points in quadrant 1 are positive. I have a positive x and a positive y. Let's look at quadrant 2. For quadrant 2, in order to get there, I need to go left and up. So to go left, the x needs to be negative, and to go up, the y is positive. For quadrant 3, I need to go left, negative x, down, negative y. So quadrant 4, same thing. I need to go right, so that's a positive x, and then I need to go down, which gives us a negative y. So So this is a nice sign chart to help us know if I'm going to be in the second quadrant, my x needs to be negative, my y needs to be positive. And so this is just a brief review of how to graph points. Now what we're going to do with this is we're going to use this to graph equations. So far in our class, we've only used equations with one variable, meaning we've used just an x, we've had a process of solving for x. You can go back and look at the other video on how to do that. But what we're going to do now is we're going to relate these two things. I'm going to relate y to x. So that means these two are in a relationship. One affects the other. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to graph this equation on my coordinate plane. Now, a nice way to graph is to make a table. We're going to make an XY table. So if you have your graphing calculator, or just your calculator, I'm going to show you how to use it to make a table. So what we're going to do first is we're going to pick some x's, just some random x's. And I always like to pick -1, or -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. Because it shows me some positive numbers, it shows me some negative numbers, and I like to include 0. So these are the x's we're going to use to graph. Now in order to get the y to go with this x, what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace this x with -2, meaning substitute -2 for x. Now what it would look like is this: 2 times -2 minus 3. From here, we follow the order of operations, or we can just use our calculator. So in my calculator, 2 times -2 minus 3. Now make sure you include parentheses around the -3 or -2 to make sure that this is multiplication. Now when I push enter, I get a value of -7. So what I have is I have the point -2, -7. -2, left 2, down 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this point is part of the graph. I plugged in 2, I got -7. Now we're going to go ahead and do the same thing with -1. So I'm going to, in my calculator again, replace this 2 with a -1. Now to save myself time on typing, I'm just going to push the up arrow, slide over, and push 1. When I hit enter, I get a value of -5. So that tells me I have the point -1, -5. Left 1, down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do the same thing with 0. Plug in 0 minus 3. Again, use my calculator, so come on up here. We have to get rid of this -1, so I'll delete the negative, change that to a 0, and I get a value of -3. So -3, that'd be 0. When we have 0, that means don't move right or left, and go down 3. 1, 2, 3. I do the same thing with 1, and I do the same thing with 2. To save some time, I'm going to go ahead and just write out what they are. This is -1, this is +1. So I'm going to plot the point 1 over 1, down 1, 1, -1, and I'm going to plot the point 2, 1, over 2, up 1. And I see here that these points form a nice line. Now in this example, I'm going to go ahead and connect them because there are numbers in between here, and we'll talk about the difference between what is called discrete and continuous later. But there are numbers here. For example, I could plug in -1/2 if I wanted to, but in this case I kept it positive. So that's how we use a table to graph a line. What I want you to do, I want you to pause the video, and on your paper, I want you to make a table and graph this line. To save us all a little bit of time, I've already gone ahead and made my table. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to plug in -2 into this equation. Now you could be wondering, what do we do with this negative out front? Well, you just leave it. So when I plug this in for x, I put parentheses around my -2, plus 2. And when I type this in my calculator, I do the same thing. I just put negative in parentheses, -2 plus 2. If we use parentheses, we can type this exactly how we have it written. When I push enter, I get a value of 4. So this tells me the point -2, left 2, up 1, 2, 3, 4. I've already gone ahead and made the table for the other values. So I'm going to go ahead and graph those. So -1, 3, 1, 2, 3. 0, 2, so 0, 1, 2. 1, 1, and 2, 0. Over 2, 0 tells me don't move up or down. From here, we can go ahead and connect them. But that's the rest of the video on how to use a table to graph a line.